Hi, it's Alexander. Today on the Briseman Crypto Literacy Course Level 1, Step 2, we are going to be taking a look at what centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges are. Now, just to put things into context, in traditional finance or CeFi, liquidity is provided by a central organization like a bank, like a stock exchange, and so on. Banks have lengthy, paper-intensive processes. They can be cumbersome, they have costly infrastructures, and they always tend to minimize their risk exposure by backing organizations that adhere to strict criteria. A traditional exchange is another place where liquidity can be accessed, but they come with their own limitations. When a buyer is looking for the lowest price and sellers are trying to get as much as they can, the two parties don't always agree. So sometimes there's not enough liquidity in the exchange to execute a buyer's order. So when that delay arises, the trader needs to wait for another buyer or seller to place an order. So this leaves the companies with less formalized governance processes, or no publicly available information, or little publicly available information, or not enough assets to provide as collateral. It leaves them out of the party. They can't get access to liquidity. They can't get access to fund their growth. So, and you can see this is, like a typical order for a crypto exchange. And you can see that in the order book right now, if, I wanted to get 5 billion coins of, at the 6Z86 price, well, I can't. I'm going to have to, if I really want the tokens now, because I feel that the price is going up really fast, well, I'm going to have to go up in the order book until I can fill in my 5 billion coins. Or I can place an order here and sit and wait for somebody up here to be desperate enough to sell to go down in price. So you're always being limited by the availability of the liquidity and the willingness of people to, sell their assets at a certain price. So these limitations of the traditional order book, these are the limitations to the traditional order book model that market makers like Coinbase and Gemini have set to overcome. Market makers are centralized exchanges, so they're always willing to buy and sell assets at a specific price, thereby offering a place for buyers and sellers to meet and trade. Often using their own assets, market makers make sure that there's always liquidity in the exchange. That's why users can trade 24/7, 365 days a year without any delays, as opposed to the traditional stock market like Wall Street, where you have opening and closing hours, and as opposed to order book based exchanges where you're going to basically have to wait for somebody to want to sell, or you're going to have to buy up in terms of price. Now, while market makers are an improvement on the traditional stock exchange, their transactions are relatively slow and they tend to be costly. Right? If you look here, I just took, like I said, you don't have up or down. You only have, if I want to buy BTC, they're close to 29,600 Canadian, and there's going to be $400 a $4 fee. Now, if you're also people that are fans of DeFi will argue that you're not trading and you don't own your tokens when you are on a centralized exchange or on a traditional market order book. You're basically moving numbers on a ledger. So if you don't have the seed phrase to your wallet, you don't really own the coins, because unlike banks or financial products that are out there, your assets are not guaranteed. If the bank goes bankrupt, usually governments will back up, the money that you had in there. But if the exchange fails, you're going to lose all your assets with its failure. So that's a little bit the downside of centralized exchanges. You trade off owning what you have and having that security for the convenience of being able to place an order whenever you want, and there is also the fees that are there. Now, with DeFi, so decentralized finance, there was the introduction of automatic market makers, and you know, a lot of people will agree or argue that it's a new and better way to access liquidity. Automatic market makers are smart contracts that regulate trading. So, being decentralized, they allow buyers and sellers to trade directly with each other, without needing to be matched by a central market maker or through a traditional order book. So it's kind of like peer-to-peer trading, but through smart contracts, since users trade directly against the smart contract. So how is the price determined on a decentralized exchange? Well, in a decentralized exchange like Ice Cream Swap or like Pancake Swap, markets are organized in liquidity pools. So each pool you will contain two tokens. For this example, we'll make up a new Brise and we'll pair it to BNB. And in each liquidity pool, the traders can buy in both directions. So you can buy some Brise and provide some BNB, or you can, you know, buy some BNB and provide some Brise. What makes this liquidity pool so special is the concept of an automated market maker. An automated market maker, it takes the price of the token is determined by a formula. This formula is called the constant product formula. It's extremely important that you understand this formula if you want to understand the price of a token. You really need to understand that the formula says that at any point the product, right, so the equal of the two token reserves must always equal the same amount. So no matter if I go up with X or up with Y, K must always come out to be the same. All right. So for example, if we have an even number of BNB and Brise, so you would have 1,000 tokens in each pool, the product of the pool is going to be 1,000 times 1,000, so that's going to be 1,000,000. Now, if you want to buy some Brise tokens, after the trade, we're going to have less Brise and more BNB in the pool. So we can see that on the graph. I'm going to go down and I'm going to go back here. All right. So what does that mean, really? So if I, for example, want to buy 200 Brise, all right, in our 1,000 pool, this is the equation that we're going to have to solve. Now you can see that, you know, once we solve it, it can be rearranged to see the final number of BNB that we're going to have in the pool for the 200 Brise that I'm going to have taken out. Now, we also know that before the trade, we had 1,000 BNB in the pool. So if we compute the difference, right, so 1,250 minus 1,000, it's going to give us, in our example, the 250 BNB that I would have had to pay to get my 200 Brise. Now, if I want to know how much I paid per Brise, well, I just have to divide the 250 divided by 200, which is the amount of Brise I got. So that would come out to 1.25 BNB per Brise. So that's the calculus. And what happens if instead of buying 200 Brise tokens, I would have wanted to buy 500? Well, in this case, I would have had to pay 1,000 BNB, right? We do the same calculus, and we come down to having paid 1,000 BNB. Now, I got 500 BNB for that 1,000, so I'm actually, I'm going to be, oops, I forgot to change the calculus here. So it's 500 divided by, it's 1,000 divided by 500, so it's going to give me 2 BNB per Brise. So what does that tell us? Well, we can see that first, the token price depends on the number of tokens that you buy, which means that when someone asks you the price of a token, we can't give an absolute answer because it depends on how much they actually want to buy or sell. Second, the more tokens that you buy, the more expensive the average price will be. So that's called slippage. All right, it's part of what we will identify when we trade on a decentralized exchange as slippage. At some point, the price becomes infinite. So this guarantees that there's always going to be a price at which you can buy the tokens, even though there might not be the quantity of tokens that you want to buy, right? So this goes basically exponential, and it's always going to make it that I'm going to have some of the base token left, but because if that happens, well, I'm going to fulfill in the pool. I'm just going to, the price is going to go up all the time. So you have to be mindful of that when you buy and sell large amounts. The more you buy, the more you're going to have slippage. Now, slippage in a DEX also accounts for any price movement because other people are buying and selling at the same time you are, and it also accounts for anything that's related to tokenomics. So if you have a 5% tax, well, and the price is very volatile and the liquidity inside the pool is low, well, you're going to have the 5% tax plus slippage. Now, we're going to see here that what happens when I add liquidity to a pool. Well, the price curve moves upwards, which means that there's going to be an effect on slippage, or in other words, the price will increase more slowly as you buy and decrease more slowly as you sell. So that's the price impact part of the slippage. Then you'll have, of course, the price variation, and you'll also have to account for anything that's related to a tokenomics tax, because basically slippage says if I was going to get 1,000 coins, I put 10% slippage. It means that I can get as low as 900. If I put 15, as low as 850, or as much as 1150. So it really, the slippage accounts for the variation in between the quote and what I'm actually going to get. And what I'm going to get is going to vary depending on the slippage I'm creating by the volume of tokens I'm buying or selling, and the general market, what other people are doing at the same time. So this is really pretty much how these different exchanges work. We're going to get into the next course into the tokenomics, how burns work, how value is to be calculated. But this is a really important part for people to understand, that all the different exchanges out there are different products that work in different ways. So that's why sometimes you'll see big sales happen inside a centralized exchange, because you don't have that slippage there. Because if I'm going to sell a large amount, I'm going to eat into the liquidity pool, and so at the end I'm going to get a far lesser price for my tokens. So whereas in a centralized exchange, I just put the order out there and people will buy it as they see fit, but I'm going to get my price. So that's the big notions there. So I want you guys to have a great day, and I want you guys to have some great investments.